Hello and welcome to Clockwork Noodles, the channel where we continue to break down the summer season, guys. We are on it again with more anime goodness. The channel's a bit up in the air right now because there's some animes which aren't what I wanted, or there might be new animes on there. Obey Me is slightly delayed because episode 1 has dropped if you are not aware of it. However, it's just for VIPs, and the Obey Me devs have pretty much begged us not to spoil ahead of time, so that's going to come out next week. But there's little bits and pieces going on. But if you want to stay in the loop with everything that's going on the channel, the best way to do this is to ensure you are subscribed. You end up seeing all of the videos that go up. Is also a Discord channel for you too. This sends you a notification straight to your phone, so you can stay on top of whatever is coming out on the channel and when. We will settle into a pattern. I will probably end up redoing my schedule at some point once everything is a bit more finite. I think it is time to break down another episode of the case study of Vanitas. It's a very interesting episode. There's a few little bits and pieces I want to talk about. I don't have the biggest script notes in the world. I can spend a little bit of time breaking into the bits I really did enjoy. The brief introduction, I liked the red moon. I liked the way that the red moon was shown because it looked a bit mechanical. The way that you had all these little arms reaching out. It's a fun sequence. It's just essentially trying to set up the idea of curse bearers, just because this is a very key piece of information that travels throughout this entire episode. And it also sets up the past with the children playing together. So very brief, but I think it's very important. As well, bearing in mind that red filters generally mean blood. We do see literal blood in the intro, and it is a sign of danger. And I think the section a little bit later on where we see Noe actually thinking back to something quite traumatic, that must literally come quite quickly after this initial segment. The danger we see here is pretty much foreshadowing the next set of events. And my friends, where does every good duo start? Well, in jail. A fun place to start, of course. Our boys are in jail this week. I like the fact that they tied the end credit scene into this, so if you didn't wait to the end and you're wondering why they're suddenly in jail, you did miss the end sequence. The most concerning point here was that the book was gone. I was a little bit worried. Interestingly enough, we end up with Noe announcing his plan, the plan to assess the book, and then Vanitas actually throwing some doubt upon the mission. So what does assess actually mean? Does he want us to assess how gorgeous the book is? Because the book is very gorgeous. Or does he want us to assess whether the book is a threat? And what I'm starting to piece together is that this book, depending on who uses it, can be used for good or bad. So perhaps the teacher is asking Noe, you need to assess whether the book right now is being used for good or bad. Because this entire sequence, this entire episode, it's all about Noe actually coming to side with Vanitas. Right at the start, we do see that Noe doesn't want to side with Vanitas. He actually says, I don't actually like you that much. It's a heartbreaking scene to poor Vanitas. But it's a fun sequence because we see where his mind is at. He doesn't want to pair up. However, he is aware to do his job, to do what he promised his teacher to do. He needs to. So we can see him going through a bit of inner conflict with this as well. The blank Vanitas reacting to the fact that he isn't a very liked character and Noe does not like you. It's heartbreaking. Heart goes out to him. It's sad. I like the comic use. I didn't think the use of the comic chibis was going to be a good thing for me. I didn't know if I'd get behind it. I think the way they're using it, I think it works quite well because it's just that moment where this is literally my face reacting to you slating me. I like it. Really, really nice segment. The Paris introduction segment as well is quite nice because this pretty much is the first time our boy Noe is actually getting to see the town that he really wanted to see. It's just beautiful. I think the art style on this anime is really one of the stronger points. There's so much detail. You can see Notre Dame in all its glory looking exactly like Notre Dame looks. Well, not so much after the fire, but how Notre Dame would have looked a bit further back then, pre-fire. Vanitas ending up babysitting section. This actually feels a bit more in line with the OP. A few of us were saying that the OP and the way that they act in episode 1 didn't quite line up to expectations. A lot of us were expecting Vanitas to be a bit more serious, and he ended up being a bit more childish, whilst we saw Noe acting a little bit different. This little segment here with Vanitas being worn out because he's having to keep up with a very highly energetic Noe, that lines up 100% with the OP. And I can also perhaps in my head think that the OP is what Vanitas is reacting to. So all of those bits with him being flung around into the fountains, maybe that's exactly the magical trip that he went on during that segment, and now he's worn out on the floor. This segment here, I'm going to give a little tiny sin because the servants kind of hear the hand gesture. I don't think he's casting magic. If he's casting magic, fair enough. But he just kind of puts his hand down to gesture them to stop. But bear in mind, they're staring right at the guys who have just entered the room. They're not even looking at him right now. So you didn't see that. But this is the episode where we are told that Vanitas isn't a vampire. And I thought he was, and I am mistaken. But at the same time, I don't know if I fully believe this. Because if he's a human, we have seen him moving suspiciously fast during the segment last week. And the fact that he face planted the floor from a very great height. Any of us mortal humans watching this channel, if you are not a mortal human, hello, welcome. You are also welcome here in my safe space. Any of us humans would be jelly juice. We would be bean juice all over the floor. The fact that Vanitas has survived and we see him getting flung about quite a bit this episode, I've just got my doubts whether he's a normal human being. There might be something more to it. This scene here is just... welcome to the world of pet ownership, all just in one place. You miss your beloved pet, you come home, and the pet either abuses you or it demands food and then it F's off and it doesn't want to see you again. This is the world that I live in. I came home looking to see my beautiful rat boys and I got ignored by all 5 of them. It was painful. We are told that Amelia is going to be killed and she's a curse bearer. So regardless of the fact that we saw her being healed last week, the vampires of the red blood moon, they believe that that's it. She's had her name defiled. She's going to be killed. That is the end of that. I thought they were supposed to be the good guys, but I don't quite think you guys are. But again, maybe it's out of fear. The fact that up until this point, nobody's really survived maybe being a curse bearer. Is the sequence that links us back to our brief intro where the idea of a curse bearer is brought back. And of course, this now preps us for the next segment where we see Noé's past. I also think this scene is very important because it actually shows Noé that this guy is willing to kill somebody. So I did figure that this segment was very important because it would start to swing Noé's allegiances a little bit. Because I think he would see that Vanitas at this point has just saved her. So him saying, I want her back, he can predict that, I want her back to let her live a normal life. Up until this point, I think, given the choices, Noé is starting to side with Vanitas. And this is the scene that kind of pushes him over the edge. This is why this scene is probably the most important sequence of this episode. It's the one which ends up driving him to agree to work with Vanitas. Even though he technically says, you're working for me, it's a fun sequence and it's where we need to be heading with the guys working together at this point. Trauma sequence. The trauma sequence is very nicely layered. I like the way it's layered up because it starts with both sides just quarrelling. Everybody's arguing. But inside Noé's head, who's starting to trigger, we start to see that the quarrel becomes a wall of noise as a violin starts to play a very sad melody rising up above everything. I think the sad melody is starting to play into the sad memory that he's being triggered to remember. A friend of his that he feels that he could have perhaps saved, but he couldn't do anything. He felt powerless to save them, ended up being, again, sentenced to death for being a curse bearer. So seeing that this is a punishment or a curse or this is a tradition that has aged since he was a child. So it's not Amelia is the first to die or anything. It's just how they handle this. I believe that at this point as well, he's seeing all of this trauma and the fact that Amelia also now her head is on the chopping block. He sees another life that he will end up losing and unable to save if he doesn't act, which is where we see him snap physically, kicking the desk into the wall and demanding his ultimatum. Acts as our first task for our duo. We need to go and find the person responsible for the killings, the attacks in Paris, which links nicely to the very first opening segment. People were talking crazy about vampires. There were rumours going around. This nicely linking into it. But it does allow Noé to get a chance to save Amelia, so he gets one day. And it allows Vanitas to gain a partner, even if it is just for one day. However, I think with the way that it's going, it may be a little bit longer than just one day. This is also the moment where we see Noé, a side of Noé that we haven't really seen predicted in the OP. This is where he acts completely different from the OP. We see a very serious, a very angry, a more expressive form of Noe this segment. A much more serious side to him that perhaps is more scarier, because even at this point he's able to silence Vanitas, who often enough is quite chuckly and he often has a retort for most things. At this point, even he doesn't want to mess with Noe. The voice actor for the friend, I don't quite remember the friend's name, sounds really, really familiar. Just that voice, there's no helping her. The kid, was it Frederick or something? That guy. The voice really sounds very familiar at that point, but I can't pinpoint who it is yet. And we meet Dante. Oh, Dante, my boy, you have changed a hell of a lot. The line where he says somebody who will do anything for money, that is Dante all over. I mean, the guy has got a pizza habit he needs to fuel. Give him some money. I love it. I like the inclusion of this character. Obviously, he's not supposed to be Dante, but guys, give me a moment to just chill over something I love as well. In my head, he's going to be Dante. But we definitely know the one who is doing all of the heavy lifting in this relationship now. Vanitas is mistaken for a Pokemon and literally launched into battle. That was hilariously funny. I wasn't expecting it. That caught me off guard. I giggled a lot. Now, Luca. You could have probably actually had what you wanted if you had maybe started with the things you say later on. Now let's talk about Luca, because Luca, you're not in a good book with me, and I'm sorry, I don't like you. You're too demanding. Luca doesn't start with giving reasons for wanting the book. Doesn't come straight across and go, hey, look, I've got somebody who's very dear to me. I need this book. Doesn't start with any of this. Bearing in mind, maybe started with this, I think Vanitas may have actually been more obliged to help or listen or talk or at least anything, because this goes horrifically wrong really, really quickly. And it's just Luca just doesn't seem to really know how to ask for something, and then initially goes, well, you're evil, you're the one who's doing this, despite the fact that Luca has absolutely no proof. And yes, it is put down to the fact that they fear Vanitas. They fear the Blue Moon Curse. They fear the book. At the same time, though, it doesn't stop you from just kind of using logic. You haven't seen Vanitas do anything. He even says, I will examine your brother. He's offering you to help. What have you got to lose at this point? Your brother's already cursed to death. But no, Luca, this is not how you ask for items when you are desperate. Negotiations sadly break down, and we are introduced to a frightening character called John, or Jean. It's a French name. I always thought it was like John the Arc or something. Joan of Arc. I'll work on it, guys. I'll work on it. The gauntlet that she uses, Carpe Diem, this is our gateway into lore, my friends. There is a dark lore between this. The idea that there was a war. We have vampires betraying vampires, siding with humans. These little details, things like this, is what's going to start building up a lore to Vanitas. Something that will hopefully make it a little bit deeper than what's going on to the surface. We're going to start adding history into the mix. And the gauntlet itself is very, very nifty. I like the look of it. The music at this section too, it's Pandora Hearts. I got my Pandora Hearts fixed. Just that segment. We've got the violin, the female voices that always seem to be chanting a little bit. That bit right there. I'm so happy that they've kind of got the same composer, same kind of musicians involved, because it definitely reminds me that, oh, by the way, Pandora Hearts was a thing. Oh yeah, I remember. Great music, really like it. The gauntlet with the bloody past, absolutely terrifying character, and the fact that Luca just kind of goes, go and get the book, but then Jen, we'll work on it, guys. It goes absolutely crazy, and there was no way that you weren't going in for the kill there. Noe's sentence at the end about everybody being really terrible listeners, that sentence sums up this entire episode. Maybe that should be the title of the breakdown video, just terrible listeners all round, guys. 0 out of 10. Would not recommend talking to these guys. They're not gonna listen. Vanitas does state that he understands that it's because of the fear of the blue moon. Now, this is a nice, important moment, because Vanitas himself is saying, I'm not angry at these people for reacting the way they do. I understand the way that they are reacting. It's the fear of the blue moon. People are not listening because they're just terrified. They don't want to listen to or reasoning. They just see something as being dangerous if it's in the wrong hands. They don't even consider the fact that it all comes down to who's holding it. And there's a possibility that this Vanitas may be different from past Vanitases. The blue filter now, this whole sequence with Noe having a bit of I think it's our first heart-to-heart moment with Noe in a sense, Noe and Vanitas. This is a really nice moment because Noe actually shows a bit of respect for Vanitas. And this is one what I think he's actually kind of earned because at this point, Vanitas has gone, well, we might have just been attacked. People have just tried to pin me as the bad guy, even though hint, he probably is the bad guy, and I still think that it's gonna do the 360 at some point. But even at this point, he's displaying a level of understanding, and that leads Noe to actually say, well, they're just seeing fear of something and not the fact that it's potential. It's all about who holds it. Using his experiences up until this point, all he's seen from Vanitas is the fact that he's healed somebody. He's using experiences to guide his judgment. So it's quite a logical thing. Most of the time, you should always judge people on actions as opposed to words. What he's doing right now, actually is saying something nice to Vanitas. It feels like it's fine. It feels like it's perfectly placed. This is a natural thing to do with him. I'm looking out for it, guys. I think we might have had a tiny hint that something might have been up this week. But the blue filter itself, calm, healing. It's a break from the very heated fight segment we just had. That segment was decorated in the colour red because red is passion, it's fire, it's danger, it's quite fast paced as well. However, let's look at the face. Is he A, hiding his true face right now and actually hiding a smirk, or B, he's hiding his embarrassment out of the nice kind words coming his way? Because I'm not quite sure it's B, guys. Vanitas is showing two faces, and I think moments like this are there to placed out in our minds as a viewer, because up until this point you might be like, all I've seen from Vanitas right now is he's actually a good guy, and I've seen good things. I've seen him even be understanding to people who have just cast a very quite painful judgment upon him. I'm keeping an eye on you, Vanitas, because even though I want to believe you, I know the ending. Apparently you're going to die by Noe's hand, and this is a smirk. This isn't a smile. This is a smirk. What do we think the plan to bring her down is? The woman whose name I cannot say. I'm sorry. I can say Vanitas, but I can't say Jen. That's a real name as well. I will try and work it out. Next week, I will surprise you guys by being able to say that name. And it's not even Japanese I'm tripping over. It's French. And I took French for like 3 years. I think this was a good episode for lore. I think it was mainly an important episode to set up some important bits and details like curse bearers, the idea of the fear of the book as well, starting to understand Vanitas a bit more. Calling him a human as well is a interesting thing. I don't know if I fully believe it. I still want to think there's something more going on as well. But it's a great episode, and we get to see a duo starting to be born, even if it is a duo placed on someone not telling the truth. It's still great to see them in action, even though they are both being quite surprising right now and not living up to my expectations. Having those quite serious moments with Noe, seeing a different side to him. Vanitas, I don't know what Vanitas is doing. He's the symbol of chaos right now. I don't know what's going on with him. I thought I could read him, but constantly reminded that I probably shouldn't be openly trusting this guy. I'm liking it. There's a lot of nice little lore elements, adding in the gauntlet as well, showing that there might be they're like weapons in this world that are going to be used by vampires, which are very powerful. I don't think I want to go up against that weapon. That weapon looks evil. Dante, you are going to be in my head. This is my little treat to myself. I'm just going to pretend that Dante has isekai'd into a different anime with the same name, the same attitude for pizza and money, but just he's got a slightly different hair colour here. Thank you guys so much. What did you think about this week's episode? Do you think that is a smirk, or is that a embarrassed smile? I don't think he's embarrassed. What's he got to be embarrassed about anyway? He's been pretty shameless most of his interactions, just begging for him to help him. Comments down below. Have a great day, guys. Bye bye.